afternoon, we will hear from County Chief Executive Officer Mona Miyasato, Chairman of the Board of Supervisors Steve Lavanino, and we'll finish the program with a presentation from Dr. Peter Rupert. We continue to work very closely with our county executive team and elected officials, and we want to thank each of them for being here today. Despite the size 16 font, I am going to put the glasses on. It's an honor to stand before you in this role, especially as a proud small business owner representing businesses of all sizes across our region. Last year, Joey Zumaya from LinkedIn, who served as our chair, offered incredible insights from a macro business perspective. Joey's contributions were invaluable, as always, and his leadership reminded us of the importance of looking at the big picture. However, today, I'm here to share a different perspective, one that's rooted in the day-to-day experiences of small business owners like me. I actually come from a very long line of entrepreneurs, which I recently found out I'm considered a serial entrepreneur. Very exciting. Along with my family, I've owned and operated several businesses, each one exposing me to the various challenges associated with different industries. I launched Santa Barbara Gift Baskets 20 years ago, but it wasn't until year 10 that I finally decided to join the chamber. Initially, I joined for the networking opportunities, but what I gained was far more than a list of new prospects. The support, advocacy, and connections provided by the chamber have made all the difference in the trajectory and speed at which my business has grown. That is the power of our chamber. It's here for businesses of every size, even in leadership roles. All one needs to do is look at the impressive diversity of our board to see that the chamber truly has invited to the table every facet of business here in our region and provides a platform for all to have their voice heard. And on that, I just love, would our board please stand? This is just so impressive. Could everyone stand and we could just give a round of applause to our board? Francois got up really fast and sat right back down. Being a small business owner isn't without its challenges. I want to share a story that's close to home for me. After decades of serving our county as a firefighter, my husband, Todd, recently retired and started a mobile document shredding business, aptly named First Response Shredding. He owns a 40-foot truck and has already built an impressive client list serving both North and South County businesses. Recently, a new regulation has been put into effect at the state level. In many ways, this well-intended requirement seems to conflict with existing regulations. The extra complexity this has added has been frustrating, to say the least. But here's the thing. It's not just frustrating for my husband. It's affecting every small business that relies on trucking or freight. While larger businesses may have the infrastructure and resources to address these new regulations, the requirement especially impacts small businesses, the ones like Todd's, like mine, and like many other in our community. Nearly every product in my shop is made by a small business owner, and if they don't receive their supplies or can't get their products delivered to me in a timely manner, we all suffer. You don't get any Jessica Foster's truffles if this is the case. When costs rise in one industry, like hospitality, for example, it trickles down and affects every small business connected to it. If visitors to Santa Barbara choose to book a trip in a different city, it's not just the hotel that misses out on that revenue, but every restaurant, every entertainment venue and attraction, and every mom and pop shop. I don't get to make and deliver the welcome amenity. The Lark doesn't get the dinner party reservation. The Santa Barbara Adventure Company doesn't book the sunset kayak trip, and Dylan Star doesn't move any merchandise. This is why the work we do at the chamber is so critical. Every time a new regulation is added or a tax is imposed, it may seem like just another line in the regulation book, but for small businesses, it's yet another hurdle to overcome. Small businesses truly are the backbone of our region. They are the ones buying the banners hanging in your child's gym at high school. They're the first ones to donate to your favorite nonprofit. And not only do we collect sales tax on every dollar they earn in their business, but those funds go right back into our local community when they spend them in their own hometown. We're thrilled for the opportunity today to work closely with our elected officials who also want to support small businesses and help us, big and small, grow, and prosper. That concludes my portion. Thank you. And clearly you like to do some networking, so after our program concludes, we will have additional time for networking, and we look forward to giving you all an opportunity to connect. Thank you for joining us, and now I'd like to introduce our president and CEO, Kristen Miller.
Thank you so much, Anne. I'm Kristen Miller, your president and CEO of the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce, and I am really delighted to be here today to welcome you to our 4th annual State of the County. Today's event represents the productive engagement between the Chamber and our county leaders. The Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce, along with the other chambers across the county, have a proud tradition of working with our county leaders and their professional staff. We have collaborated on numerous important projects, always with the aim of strengthening our community and supporting local business. At the heart of our work is a promise to convey the needs of our local business members. This is especially critical during challenging times when the voices of our businesses must be heard. Through extensive outreach and feedback from our business community, we ensure that the county is well informed about the issues and challenges we all face. Our top priorities have not really changed. Our commitment is to economic development and workforce housing, and it's never been stronger. We are making significant strides on both of these priorities. In a world where the pace of change is only accelerating, the need for forward-thinking and innovative economic development strategies cannot be overstated. We've identified 3 primary obstacles that our businesses face: access to a qualified workforce, affordable housing for that workforce, and navigating a complex regulatory environment, as Anne just illustrated before. These challenges are significant, but so is our resolve. Everything the Chamber does is driven by economic development. In the past few years, we've made notable progress in 2 key industry sectors that are critical to our workforce pipeline: hospitality and high-tech manufacturing. Through dedicated campaigns and programs, we are strengthening the workforce in these areas, but our work doesn't stop there. We see a growing demand for support in the healthcare industry as well. To that end, we believe that a regional support system is vital for sustaining the key industry sectors on the South Coast. And over the next 3 to 5 years, our goal will be to engage with each city and the county to ensure this support is not just our vision and our dream, but a reality. In the coming months, we will propose new economic development programs for the county. Years of research and starter programs have put us in a position to propose real solutions that address the challenges in our local economy. There's a joke some of you have heard. In Santa Barbara County, if you ask somebody, what's your favorite color? They say, we need more housing for the workforce. This shared reality is why we are so proud of our employer-sponsored housing consortium. This innovative approach allows a group of forward-thinking employers to secure new housing stock for their employees, guaranteeing housing for the local workforce. This was introduced in our Road Home, released last May, and expanded in the Road Home 2, released last month, and it's on your tables today. The county has been an energetic ally in this work. Thanks to this collaboration, we are on track to launch the first employer-sponsored housing consortium in 2025. This initiative will not only address our workforce housing crisis, but also, we hope, serve as a model for other regions across the state. We truly appreciate the county supervisors and staff support of this program. As I said, you have a copy on your table, or there's also a QR code if you are that fancy. The Chamber remains dedicated to these important priorities and to working with government at all levels to create the best possible solutions. You will likely hear about these topics and more from the rest of our guest speakers today. Together, we're not just navigating the challenges of today, we are shaping a prosperous tomorrow, and we look forward to continuing this journey ensuring the prosperity and economic vitality of our great, great county. Thank you. Now, as many of you know, great events like this would not be possible without the support of our sponsors, and we are so grateful and thankful for the continued and growing support from our business community. I'm going to start today by thanking and introducing, we have two presenting sponsors who each will share a few words with you. It's a delight to get to introduce and thank the Ritz-Carlton for hosting us today, and my pleasure to introduce Bradley Kantz, the general manager. Come on up. Thanks for having us.
Well, welcome everybody. I wanted to first start saying I'm Brad Kantz. I'm the new general manager of this incredible resort. I'm ecstatic to be here, and I look forward to retiring here. So you'll see a lot of me for a long time, I hope. Just a quick funny story before I say a few words. I was, a few weeks ago, Courtney and Kristen asked me to say a few words, say a welcome. And I said, sure, no problem. I'll absolutely do that. I got here 4 months ago. I was living in the hotel. It was really tough for about 7 weeks. And then they kicked me out, and so I got a house. I was renting in the Mesa. And family came, and I finally closed on a house with a rent back for a month and a half for free, which is new to me here. So I just learned 2 weeks ago that I was able to move in today. My wife waved to me, and if you know those looks, not a good one. So if there's any divorce lawyers in the audience, I might have to speak to you after. But I'm literally came from my house, and I'll be going back to open boxes. I'm sure you all know how that is. First of all, I just wanted to say welcome. The Ritz-Carlton Bakar is one of our premier resorts in our entire company. The Ritz-Carlton has 106 hotels and resorts, only really 7 like this, and this is the premier resort for us in our portfolio. I've spent about 3 decades in the luxury business, and most recently I was in the Ritz-Carlton, Washington, D.C. I've been in 36 years of hospitality in Chicago, Vancouver, Seattle, Naples, St. Louis, Palm Beach, Bethesda, Virginia Beach, and most recently Washington, D.C., but nothing really compares to Santa Barbara. I have family south and north, so it's first time I've moved in 40 years for family. And I will say something, when I announced that I was coming, it's not like when I was going to Houston, no one really cared, but when I was coming here, everybody, without a doubt, 100% of people said, oh my God, I've been there, I love that place. And it was 100%. And that's really unique, rare, and special, and I don't think that there's many places that can actually boast that. I enjoyed jumping right in. I've been working with Kathy and her team with Visit Santa Barbara, and of course Kristen and Courtney with the Chamber, and it's all been priceless, so I really appreciate that. It's been an incredible warm welcome for me here in the community. It's a special place. People are genuinely glad to live here, and the vibe is wonderfully laid back. There's a feeling of connection, community, and neighborliness. People care about Santa Barbara and are invested in what is happening and how the future looks. It's such an inspiring community when all of us come together. One of Ritz-Carlton's biggest endeavors is to have a footprint in the community, and a huge footprint. Recently, we brought a lot of our ladies and gentlemen to the food bank just down the road, and we packed up pallets of food for those in need. And we'll do that as pillars of our community footprints throughout the year. And it's very important to our ladies and gentlemen to be a part of that. In the luxury hotel business, my approach has always been to drive culture. It's the key to success, whether it's fully engaged employees, whether it's fully engaged guests, owners. It's been the secret to my success. So I look forward to continuing this strong culture that's here in this resort and establishing even a stronger one. This has all led me after, I've done, I think 6 hotels are 5 stars, 5 diamonds. My biggest renovation was $125 million in Palm Beach in 2006. And all of my career, everything's led me to this beautiful property in this community. It's an exciting time, and we'll be celebrating our 25th anniversary next year in 2025. So we're excited about that. An announcement that many of you may have heard, or maybe not, I'm not sure, but we are going to go through a revitalization next year. There's been a few happening in town, so we figured we'd jump on the bus. And we're going to infuse a new energy and ethos into the property, an organic design to create a peaceful sanctuary. It'll be a nod to this region's historic California style and its original tastemakers. We call it a relaxed and elegant hacienda style. We'll be renovating villa by villa so that guests are minimally disturbed. In addition to our guest rooms and suites, we will be improving our courtyard, the lobby, the bistro restaurant, our pools, and our poolside cabanas. The new design will truly convey the story of this unique village on the bluff, its history, surrounding nature, and the stunning Pacific Ocean. I did ask for a lazy river, but I got shot down. And just to end, I wanted to say we see Bakar as not just a wonderful destination to bring others to enjoy this paradise we call home, but also to bring the community into our home so you can see our property, share its beauty, whether it's the food truck at the beach, our special events, maybe a special dinner at Angel Oak, grabbing a drink at the O-Bar, which is Kristen's favorite thing to do. In addition to celebrating 25 years as a premier resort, Bakar also celebrates 25 years as being a member of the community. We look forward to many more years of warm partnership. Thank you, and I look forward to meeting all of you. Thank you so much, and welcome.
We're so grateful for the support. We're also very happy to have LinkedIn as our presenting sponsor again this year. Please help me welcome Maria Schneer from LinkedIn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Schneer, and I lead community development at LinkedIn locally. It's such a pleasure for me to be here today in this special place in front of this inspiring group of leaders. I was born and raised here in Goleta and grew up playing on this beach before the Bacara was even here. The experiences I had growing up here, witnessing the diverse fabric of our community, from the working class to the elite, and all of the businesses and social services that support everyone in between, led me to a career in social impact. So this really is a full circle moment for me to be part of an event that brings together business, government, and business leaders to create a thriving community. It's also central to LinkedIn's mission to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. Supporting events like this and leaders like you who make our mission a reality is the best part of our job. Thank you all for being here today, and I look forward to hearing from our presenters.
Thank you again to our lead sponsors, Ritz-Carlton and LinkedIn. I would like to thank also our corporate sponsors, who are SynCal Health, Cox Communications, and UCLA Health. Thank you. Our event sponsors are Agilent Technologies, American Riviera Bank, Atlantic Aviation, Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck, Chevron, Community West Bank, Cottage Health, and Courtyard Marriott Santa Barbara Goleta, and Ed Hat. Thank you to them. This is an impressive long list that continues with Favre Large Archibald Spray, Google, Majestic Asset Management, Marburg Industries, Nicholson and Schwartz, NewsHawk, Pacific Coast Business Times, Residence Inn by Marriott Santa Barbara Goleta, and Sable Offshore. Wait, there's more. This is the list that Ann was referring to. The backbone of our community includes Santa Barbara Airport, Santa Barbara City College Foundation, Santa Barbara Foundation, Santa Barbara Independent, Santa Barbara Zoo, Scale Microgrid Solutions, Signature Aviation, Solomon Hills, Southern California Edison, Southern California Gas, Team Solutions Group, the Tobes Group, UC Santa Barbara, Verizon, Village Properties, and Work Zones. That's the team, ladies and gentlemen, and all of you as well. A very special thank you to Jay Farbman for always making us look good, Pour Lamar Nursery for the beautifying the room with these centerpieces, and to our beverage sponsors, Marjoram Wines and M Special Brewery, for our delicious beverages. All right, now that we have set the scene, we've had our photos made, we've done some networking, it is that time to start. It's not time to start the program. I still want to introduce elected officials. We are going to hear from government officials in a main part of our program, but we really are grateful to have so many other elected officials in the room today as well. And if I can ask you to stand or raise your hand, but we're going to hold our applause for Santa Barbara County Supervisor Chair Steve Lavanino, Santa Barbara County 1st District Supervisor Doss Williams, Santa Barbara County 2nd District Supervisor Laura Capps, Santa Barbara County 3rd District Supervisor Joan Hartman. You guys can stand up. Assemblymember Greg Hart, I'm going to put you in a group with City of Goleta Mayor Paula Perotti, City of Goleta Council Member Stuart Kasdan, City of Goleta Council Member James Cariaco, City of Goleta Council Member Kyle Richards, Goleta and the state. There you go. All right, City of Santa Barbara is here as well. Mayor Randy Rouse, Council Member Eric Friedman. Thank you for being here. Oh, wait, one more City of Santa Barbara Council member, Oscar Gutierrez. And, he's in the back. And we have City of Santa Maria Council member Maribel Hernandez. Okay, we have an esteemed group from Carpinteria, Council member Wade Numura, Council member Monica Solorzano, Council member Roy Lee. Thank you for being here. From the Office of Congressman Salud Carbajal, Esmeralda Estrada. From Office of Senator Monique Lamone's office, Benjamin Peterson. And our County Superintendent of Schools, Susan Salcido, as well as Santa Barbara County School Board member, Nadra Ehrman. These are hardworking folks, and we appreciate them being here today. Okay, now we have set the scene. We have acknowledged our sponsors, our elected officials, and each other. It is my pleasure to kick off the program today to introduce our County Executive Officer, Mona Miyasato. We've had the pleasure for the past few years of hearing her updates, and it is always so timely and important. Welcome, Mona.
Okay, of course, just as Kristen was introducing me, my iPad just went there, and so it's not opening my presentation. Let's hold on one second. Let's see. There we go. So good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? I guess I am short, sorry. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting us on one of the last weeks of summer on a Friday. 4:25 inside. But if we had to be somewhere inside, what other place to be but here? But it shows all of you are dedicated to the chamber, or you want to learn about the county, or you have a bet what Peter Rupert is wearing today. Collar or no collar, I think that's what it is. But seriously, thanks for inviting us, and I want to start my presentation with a brief video that highlights what the county's priorities are for the coming year.
The County of Santa Barbara has a balanced budget focused on prudence and progress for the 24-25 fiscal year. Despite high inflation and economic uncertainty, the county's approach ensures the maintenance of core operations while advancing key local programs. Let's dive into some of those key programs making a real impact in our community. $35 million dedicated to reducing homelessness and its impacts, including Hope Village in Santa Maria and La Posada in the Goleta Valley, which offer 174 cabin units with wraparound services. Allocating $525 million for social safety net programs, mental health services, and health care for low-income residents. Increased state funding for CalFresh will enhance community access to food aid, while anticipated CalWORKS funding will increase cash assistance. Additionally, the county's crisis stabilization unit is upgraded to a locked facility with 8 crisis intervention beds for people in severe distress. The budget includes $21 million for criminal justice programs, with new expenditures for 6 full-time positions focused on diversion and holistic defense roles. These measures aim to reduce jail usage and support victims in the criminal justice process. The county is investing in electric vehicle infrastructure, upgrades, and energy-efficient projects. The 2030 Climate Action Plan will be finalized this summer, and staff are already implementing measures to increase our renewable energy profile. The county is allocating $129 million for capital projects, including the Santa Barbara Courthouse roof replacement and structural improvements at the Santa Barbara Veterans Hall. Economic vitality and recreational opportunities are being enhanced with the MoDOT multimodal trail, repairs at Goleta Beach Park, improvements at Lake Cachuma, and completion of the Agricultural Enterprise Ordinance, providing greater economic opportunities for farms in the county. The fiscal year 24-25 budget is all about prudence and progress, so the County of Santa Barbara can continue to deliver exceptional services so all can enjoy a safe, healthy, and prosperous life.
So to understand what we do, it's also important to understand the context in which we work. So I'm going to start with some general data about the county, and some of you have seen this before if you've seen my presentations. I love to show this slide because it shows we're both a rural and a suburban county. So about 48% of our land is owned by the government, mostly the federal government, which is all the yellow. And the green, which is 47%, is all the land that's in agriculture. And I show this to show that there's less than 5% in the whole county for urbanized uses like commercial activity and housing as well. And all the yellow and the green are in the unincorporated county. So you see on the bottom, the orange is the unincorporated county, the pink are the cities. So it's just to show we are a very diverse county. In the county, we have a lot of ag as well as federal land holdings. Next. So here's our population. The largest city still is the city of Santa Maria, with a quarter of the county's population living there. Obviously, the largest city in the South Coast is Santa Barbara, and you see the numbers there. Now, how many of you know someone personally who's moved out of the county in the last 1 or 2 years? Yeah, a lot of us. I've had employees move, I had friends move. Well, that's because from 2020 to now, the Department of Finance shows a decline of 1% statewide and 1% in the county of Santa Barbara, which equates to about 4,600 residents. It looks like they all moved to Guadalupe, but that's not the case. Here's our largest industry sectors, and this hasn't changed very much. This shows over the last 5 years. So healthcare and social assistance, which is really government work, ag, accommodation, food service, education, retail, professional and technical, manufacturing, construction. So these are still our top largest industries here in the county. What we're trying to do is, one of our regional goals is working with an organization called the REACH to get those tech and precision manufacturing and satellite industry jobs up higher on the list. Property values. When we talk about land, we also look at the property values. Fortunately, for those who own property in Santa Barbara County, those values have increased. So each of the blue bars is the year-over-year percentage increase. And as you can see, we never had a decline. Even in the Great Recession, when many counties actually had a negative growth, we never did. And as we see towards the end of the chart with the pandemic, all of us experienced the rise in property values. This is important to county government because a lot of our taxes are from property taxes. Now, this is something called the documentary transfer tax, and what I'm showing is really the year-over-year change in the amount of transfers or sales. So if you take a closer look, each of the blue bars is the annual transfers, and the orange line is the value of those transfers, the value of those sales. As you can see, since COVID, there's been a marked decline in the number of transactions and a decline in the values. However, the average value in 23-24 is still higher than the value when you started in 2013-14. Now, this is something that all the cities in the county pay attention to, and it's a proxy for economic activity, and this is the transient occupancy tax, or the TOT, or hotel tax. The orange line is the actual revenue growth from 22-23, and the yellow line next to it is the estimated actual for the fiscal year that just closed. And the reason they're estimates is because the actuals haven't been posted to the state yet. So as you can see on the far left, Santa Barbara City has by far the largest TOT, estimated $32.2 million. The county area on the far right has an estimated 17.7 million, and that's comprised of 24 hotels, many in Montecito, as well as short-term rentals. But most jurisdictions showed a decline in their anticipated TOT from the year prior to last year. The county has a slight uptick because we had a full year of operations of Maddie's Tavern, if anyone's gone there. If it weren't for that, we'd also be showing a decline. This is sales tax, and this is the 10-year history of sales tax. And again, the largest sales, this is over 10 years, and if you look on the right, Santa Maria is the largest generator of sales tax at about $31.7 million, followed by the city of Santa Barbara at about 28.2. The county is next, the unincorporated county at about 14.9, which is about half of the amount of the top two. But also, as you can see, for all jurisdictions except for Santa Maria, sales tax slightly declined or leveled off in the last year. Next, I want to talk about income and poverty. In 2022, the American Community Survey of the U.S. Census estimated the median income for the county was about the same as the state, $92,000. And poverty rates for Santa Barbara County were estimated at 7.3%, which was lower than the state's of 8.5%. However, if you look at other data, it tells a different story. An alternative measure is the California Poverty Measure that shows a different picture. It takes into account the cost of living and housing, as well as resources from social programs. And this shows that Santa Barbara County has the second highest poverty rate in the state, behind Yolo and actually ahead of Los Angeles at 16.9%. And if we look at our public assistance, these are some of our major programs, we see this increase too for our caseloads. The percent change is what this chart shows over the last 4 years. And in general, caseloads have grown for most of our programs. Some do just because additional need, but some because some programs have expanded by the state. Housing rents. This chart shows the average rents in our county compared to our neighbors, San Luis Obispo and Ventura, and it's no surprise to any of us, we're on the blue bar, which is the highest monthly market rate. So I'm glad Kristen made that joke about housing, but we always return to this. And that is, we all know we need more housing at varying income levels, and we can't take our foot off the gas. So the state requires local governments to plan for the existing and projected housing needs at all segments of the community and must adopt a compliant housing element, which was due over the last year. It's been a challenging process. You've heard about it in the news. You may have seen your local city council or the county's meetings. But this is a reminder that within the next 8 years, we collectively have to plan and build for over 24,000 units in our county, over 14,000 of which will be in the South County. So this is a monumental task. And I want to acknowledge the leadership of the Chamber and Kristen for working with our local businesses, workforce, government, and developers to help make this a reality, as well as the Santa Barbara Foundation. So thank you, Jackie Carrera, who's here today. So now I'm going to segue into information about county government. So we began our fiscal year just recently with a balanced budget. We didn't take any service reductions, and we didn't expand programs. And recently, we were recognized by Standard & Poor's with a AAA+ bond rating, which is the highest awarded to local governments for a recent debt issuance we did for important capital projects. We have over a $1.61 billion budget, and the most important thing to note is a third of what we do is in the yellow, Health and Human Services, is to preserve and strengthen the safety net. A little less than a third goes towards public safety, which we consider fire and our criminal justice departments, and the rest for all other things that we provide. So how do we get our money? Well, most comes actually from the state and federal government. So intergovernmental revenues make up 39% of our budget. Over a quarter, we get our funds from from taxes. 80% of that is from property taxes, and a quarter for charges for services when someone goes to our health clinics and they pay for the service. So in the last couple of years, I've been talking a lot about the county is doing very well, financially stable. We have a fully funded rainy day fund. But there were challenges ahead, and now we have a clearer forecast of what those will be. The first is just economic slowdown in revenues. So you saw from my slides, mortgage rates are still high. I know that they're coming down, but it's creating few property transfers. Sales, hotel, cannabis tax revenue for the county is leveling off or growing minimally or declining, and just the rising cost of doing business that we all face, insurance rates have really gone up. Another big challenge, though, that we face as government is the state. The state closed its $46.8 billion deficit by trying not to harm a lot of important programs, which they did, we're thankful for. But they involved temporary fixes, deferrals, and delays, so we know this was not a one-time thing, and we expect more of these issues ahead. And lastly, there's just legislative changes, unfunded mandates that continue to impact all of us. Overall, these challenges are not unique to county government. I'm sitting here with a lot of city council members as well as my board. The pressures of revenue versus expenses, given mandates, legislative changes, are being felt by many local governments throughout our region. We continue to be prudent, reduce costs, be efficient, and seek greater revenue solutions to avoid a worse fate. This is why we're asking voters in November to consider approving an increase to our hotel tax that visitors pay when they stay in lodging in the unincorporated sections of the county. And we're not alone in asking voters to help. Some jurisdictions are asking for a sales tax increase, while others, like us, are asking for an increase in the TOT. And let's not forget, we are Santa Barbara County, so another challenge is the frequency of disasters. I don't know how many people were awoken last night, if you live in the South Coast, with the fire that's about 17 miles away. So far in 2024, the county has proclaimed 2 emergencies, the 2024 storms in February and then the July lake fire. The storms of 23 and 24, the winter storms, have caused a total of about $100 million in infrastructure damage. The lake fire that just happened in July has caused damage of $76 million in value to ag. We're pursuing FEMA and state funding, but for all of us in the room who know this is going to take years to recoup. And this is just one year of many disaster-prone years in our county. Since 2014, we've had 40 proclaimed disasters or emergency center activations. But even with these pressures, we continue to make good on our priorities. So before I leave you today, I want to highlight 3 initiatives that we feel are really making a big impact in the community. The first is a look at the county's debris basins. Since the 1-9 debris flow, we've improved our debris basins throughout the South Coast and created an entirely new one, the Randolph Road Debris Basin. And I have to say that was a lot to do and a lot of pushing by Doss Williams. Montecito resident Curtis Skeen shares why it's so impactful.
I saw the 1969 debris flow growing up as a kid, and then I managed to miraculously survive the debris flow in 2018. So fast forward exactly 5 years later, and we get another huge debris flow off the mountain. This time it fills up the basin, and quite frankly, it saves the entire community here, which otherwise would most surely been inundated all again. I think Governor Newsom said it best when he came down and inaugurated the Torrey Basin. He said this is really a triumph of public-private partnership.
The next initiative is our new Regional Fire Communications Center that will be officially opening this year, and it will really transform how 911 emergency medical and fire service are deployed by centralizing all the calls in one regional dispatch center. Our fire chief, Mark Hartwig, gives more information on this.
This center will provide the resource to the public, regardless of boundaries, regardless of jurisdiction, the closest resource, most appropriate, and the quickest we possibly can. And this is all in partnership with all of our fire, rescue, and EMS providers, our board of supervisors, our CEOs, the elected fire boards, and the city councils in the county.
Lastly, I want to mention our efforts and all the regional efforts to reduce homelessness in the county. Because when it comes to homeless encampments across the county, major progress has been made, and the board adopted a response strategy in 2021. During this time, over 1,000 active encampments were removed through collective effort, resulting in over 500 people being housed. Each orange dot on this map represents an actual encampment that was resolved. And we've done so well with this strategy, in fact, that we've received competitive funding from the state 3 times now, totaling $16.5 million. And again, this just isn't about resolving the encampments, it's about providing wraparound support and shelter so individuals who are housed can stay housed. This map is an inventory of housing. There's different types: emergency shelter, transitional, permanent, dedicated to houseless individuals. And since 2021, 330 interim and 496 permanent opportunities have been added. This next slide is what's happening in the South County. It includes 176 interim and 270 permanent housing opportunities. And while massive progress has been made in the last several years, more is still needed. An estimated 233 in interim and 870 in permanent housing beds are still needed. So please continue to support these types of projects in your communities. But I want to share a success story here. Just last week, there was the grand opening of the 60-room Buena Tierra permanent supportive housing project in Goleta. Yes. It was a collaboration with the County Housing Authority, the county, the city of Goleta, city of Santa Barbara, state HCD. We were missing you, Carp, so somehow we'll try to get you in there sometime next time we do one. One of its residents was 71-year-old Scott Lucart, who spent his entire life in Santa Barbara, and he's been homeless for 18 years. He was sleeping near the cemetery off of Hollister, where now the La Posada tiny village home is located. He was offered a transitional unit there, and now he continues to thrive as one of the first residents of the Buena Tierra complex.
I guess the word for me is gratitude. I have never felt so grateful to be alive and have all this happening for me and with me. So every morning before I get out of bed, I thank God for the things I have, my family, my friends, my residents, my health, and so forth. So it's been a long time coming, but it was sure worth the wait. You know, I love it here.
So in closing, I just want to end with this. The county is responsible for hundreds of services, and it's kind of highlighted on this graphic from public safety, which is patrols, jail, diversion, disaster response, 911, to roads and facilities and infrastructure and flood control, to parks, sustainability and arts, to public and mental health services and social services. And some we do really well, some we know we could do better. But when I think of why county government exists and why many of us join the county, is I think of the recent Farm Worker Resource Center that started last year. It was supported by all the board members, and if you see on this bottom slide, it's actually Supervisor Hartman with Supervisor Nelson. And I wouldn't say those two are always politically aligned or philosophically aligned, but they both supported this as well as the rest of the board. So it's really because of their vision and their values that the county is what it is today. And this is a quote by Teddy Roosevelt that sums it up for me. This country, and you could substitute that with the county, will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in. And we know that, Roy Lee, when you join us, we know you have that servant heart as well. But I also want to say that this statement has been instilled in the county because it was lived every day by Doss Williams. So I want to thank you, Doss. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I hope there's more free booze for you.
Thank you so much, Mona. This is wine country, so I'm sure there will be plenty. And it is Friday, as you pointed out. This is now my pleasure to introduce Steve, the chair of the Board of Supervisors, Steve Lavanino from Santa Barbara County 5th District, to join me for a conversation.
Forget the stairs. I'll turn it on. It's my first time on stage.
Welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right. Well,
First off, hey, my buddy Greg Hart right there. Hey, thanks for being here, man. I miss you.
well, I have to say I've always had a secret dream to be a daytime talk show host. So you're my first chance to try this out.
Well, this is going to be a problem because that was also my dream. So I'm going to be channeling Mike Douglas and Merv Griffin here.
We could be like this, the Regis and Kathy Lee.
We could go on
What
the
do you
road.
say?
All right.
In your next career.
I noticed Regis was first, so I'm going to ask for top billing on that one. But
I have some questions for you.
okay, but before we get started, can I
And
just
that's
say
exactly
something?
yeah.
How about Mona Miyasato? Huh? Okay. So I'm going to take credit for something. I was one of the 5 supervisors. Now, if you think the County Board of Supervisors can sometimes be a little bit divergent on what our politics are, at that time the board had Peter Adam and Janet Wolf. You can't get too farther apart ideologically than those two. We were looking for a new CEO, and Mona came in for the interview, and when she walked out, all 5 of us, no matter where we were on the political spectrum, looked at each other and said, do not let her leave the building. She is highly recruited throughout the state of California. She's one of the longest tenured CEOs, and my only hope is that she lasts 2 more years, because that's how much more time I have. So Mona, thank you. You've been outstanding, just an awesome leader. Appreciate it.
Well, and she did give us a wonderful state of the county, but I have to ask you, as this year's chair of the board, what is your feeling about the state of the county?
The state of the county, I'd say I'm more excited now to come to work than I really ever have been in the past. There's been times on the Board of Supervisors where, especially in the past, where people were looked as adversaries or they're trying to score political points. These are, I look now, we're colleagues. We're all pulling on the same end of the rope. We're also, you know, it's funny, I heard somebody say, this is the way I look at this board now. They say, does it lean left or does it lean right? I say we lean in, right? We're about, forget the status quo. You know, we're throwing the status quo out and we're like, all right, you want to deal with, we're trying to deal with homelessness? Let's make something happen. Let's quit hoping something happens. Let's build some units. We tried something in Santa Maria. We have Hope Village, 94 units. I got a lot of scar tissue from that one, man. I mean, it's around some businesses. They are not happy with me. The neighbors aren't happy. But I know it's the right thing to do. And we keep it, on this Board of Supervisors, we keep that as our primary goal is let's just focus on what's the right thing to do. We'll take the political fallout and move forward. But I know I've got 4 teammates now, and that's an important thing. I think we're in really, I mean, you saw Mona, she's our leader. The other cool thing at the county is, although there's a lot of institutional loss that goes with a lot of losing a lot of our department heads, we had massive retirements. The cool thing is when you get new leaders in, you get new ideas. It's not the same way we've always done it in the past. So we've got a lot of new people that are coming in and really coming up with new creative solutions to some of the problems that have dogged us for decades.
Well, speaking of new people, you have a new member coming next year. How do you think that might be changing the dynamic of your board?
Well, first I do want to talk about Doss for a second because he is leaving, but we have to realize, we have to remember this is somebody that's given 20 years, Santa Barbara City Council, the California State Legislature, and 2 terms on the Board of Supervisors. These are not easy jobs. If you do them right, sometimes you have to make decisions that aren't popular, right? If you're just going with the flow, it's a pretty easy job. But if you stick to your values and really do what you believe is right, even though the majority might be heading the other way, these jobs can be short-lived. And so I just wish Doss the best. He's been an inspiration for me on he's got me driving a Prius, for God's sakes. You know, I never thought that was going to happen. But I will say that I don't know where he's going, but I know, it'll be something in our community that's going to try to make this a better place for his kids. So I appreciate all the time I spent with you. Roy, I've had a few chances to meet Roy, and just hearing his story, I mean, what better person to serve in public service than somebody that's an immigrant to this country, came chasing the American dream. It's a small business owner. I mean, how many restaurants fail? And he's figured out a way to make it successful. And I'm sure he's understanding also the balance that a lot of business owners understand between making sure that, there's public safety, there's regulations, but at the same time, we got to let business owners, we got to get out of their way and let them do what they need to do to be successful. So I'm really looking forward to his new perspective. I think I had a few chances to talk to him, and I told him, I don't know what political party you're in, but I hope you're part of the GSD. And he says, the GSD, what's that? And I said, just get stuff done. That's what we're about. So he said, I'm all in, so I'm looking forward to working with him.
I like that. Well, you kind of already touched on it because I was going to mention, the Chamber is a very nonpartisan organization, and you've spoken a little bit to the get stuff done. Is that what it was? Yeah. And,
well,
and the leaning in part.
The stuff, usually is a different S, but I knew we're in mixed company, so I went with the stuff.
Yeah, it's not, this isn't a nighttime event yet, so. But with all the divisiveness going on at the national level, is any of that affecting locally here at all? What are your feelings on that?
Well, first, I encourage everybody to turn off your TV and quit watching 24-hour news and just focus on what's going on in your community, because that's what's beautiful about the Board of Supervisors right now. A lot of people remember back in the 1990s and the early 2000s, that was the Board of Supervisors hearing room was the battleground, the proxy war for conservatives against liberals or progressives. And we've done away with that. And when I got on the board, it was really interesting to me that I actually had some constituents say, Steve, you're not fighting enough. You're not going to battle enough. And I'm like, but we're getting stuff done. They would have rather seen me get in a fight with somebody than actually accomplish anything. And there is a portion of the community that's like that. What I've figured out now after 20-something years doing this is that I really believe that there's 20% of the people on the far right, there's 20% of the people on the far left, but 60% of us are in the middle just trying to pave the roads, give you a safe neighborhood, build you a park, get you a trail. Those are the people I can work with. We try to bring the other people along when we can, but the people we have right now on the board, like I said, we're leaning in, we're trying to make things happen. It's a little scary when we go to public comment, you know, and we have people coming in with these conspiracy theories, and we're all sitting there like, really? Like, you know, stolen election stuff? It's like, okay. So as I've done with my own father, I've told him, turn off the radio, turn off your 24-hour news cycle, and just think about your own neighborhood.
Don't follow next door.
Yes, yes. Think about your neighbor, you know.
I like that. So 27 years, and you have told us that in the next 2 years, you're headed somewhere. You haven't told us where.
I don't have a disease. Yes, I'm not dying.
Well, so looking towards the future, though, what are the things that you are hopeful for, and what are the things you might even be worried about as far as the county?
Well, let's talk about what I'm worried about first. So, as Mona pointed out, we are doing amazing things in the homeless area. You know, as far as developing new units, we're actually building tiny homes. We're really investing a lot. Right now, we're in the Santa Maria Riverbed, trying to move people out of that into supportive housing, long-term housing. But state funding is only for 3 years. And so what I'm really worried about is they've actually provided, we're doing all the work, they're providing the funding at this point. But it's a 3-year program. And when that runs out, seeing where the state is financially right now, you know, there's no way that we're going to have the opportunity, we're not going to be able to fund that. So that's the part that worries me. Now the part that I'm excited about, first off, I'm excited in 2 years. I have 6 grandkids and they all live in Santa Maria. So you will not see me here again or at any other meeting or at public comment or anywhere. I am going to be a full-time grandpa. But what I'm excited about for the county is there are opportunities. And for the board members that are still going to be there, it's going to be a little bit harder for you because a lot of the time that I've been on the board, there hasn't been any money available, right? We're basically running on a shoestring budget. And I remember even Salud Carbajal once when a group came in and they wanted, you know, there was another need, and there's many needs, and they're all legitimate. And it breaks my heart when people come in and, you know, whether it's senior food, Meals on Wheels, those types of things. Yeah, they're legitimate, and we should be doing them, but there's only so much of the pie to go around. And I remember Salud opening these drawers on his desk on the dais saying, where's the money? I don't know where it is. You know, we don't have this secret pile of money to give you. But what I'm excited about is the Santa Barbara County Retirement Board. We're not part of CalPERS. And thanks to Jerry Brown, Governor Jerry Brown, he put in the Public Employee Pension Reform Act. I believe it was in 2014. And it really, you know, I think I ran at the time when I ran back in 2010 saying the county's employee system was unsustainable. At that time, it probably was. But because of the reforms that were made, not only is it sustainable, but it's going to give us an opportunity to do some things we've never been able to do before. And the reason why is because when the global financial crisis hit, we took significant losses in the employee fund. We are now a $4.5 billion fund. At that point, we were about $1.5 billion. We took a major hit. And other counties went out and did pension obligation funds. They tried to, you can do these paper overing losses where you just refinance it every year. Santa Barbara County did the grown-up thing. We took those losses, we bundled them together, and we said, not only are we going to make the regular payment to the retirement board, but we're also going to pay off those losses over a 17-year period. Well, that decision was made 13 years ago. And so we are now, although that seemed like so far into the future, we're now only 4 years away from paying off that unfunded liability. And what that will mean is that we're going to go paying, as you can see on the chart there, from about 40% of our payroll into the retirement fund to only 20%. And that is going to free up some dollars. Now, before everybody gets in line, there are so many things, as Mona put up on the, she started rattling off the things that we're required to do. We have a mental health crisis. We have a fentanyl crisis. We have a homeless crisis. We have a public safety crisis. Every time I come into the meeting and somebody comes in, for example, let's say Meals on Wheels. Hey, we need to fund Meals on Wheels. And then the person wants to leave the board hearing room. And I go, hey, can you wait around for just a couple more hours? Because when you leave, I want to tell you what the next thing is. The next thing is libraries are underfunded. The next thing is we need to build a crisis stabilization unit. The next thing is the sheriff comes in and says, the public safety radio network is defunct and that's going to be $50 million. Day after day, you're just spinning plates up in the air. So while that is great, and it's much better than looking at a fiscal cliff in the future, that is one thing that I feel good leaving the county saying, okay, here you go. I'm not handing you, like I did when I got to the board, a $45 million budget deficit. I'm handing you something that says you're going to have your hands full because you got to figure out what the priorities are. And honestly, what I'd really like to see happen with this is not that the Board of Supervisors alone makes that call. I think this is big enough and important enough that we go to the public and we come up with some sort of a blue ribbon committee that we hear from the public, what are your priorities? Because one of the great things that Mona's done at the county is set formulas. We have a formula for fully funding the fire department. We had a formula for building the North County Jail. We have a formula to address our maintenance issues. And if you put things in formulas and you lay out what the plan is, there's no arguing on the dais. We all know what the plan is. We all just have to commit to the plan. So I'd love to see the community come together. We have public meetings. We have a couple board members create an ad hoc committee. And we say, okay, how are we going to cut this pie up so that it makes sense for everybody?
I have a formula I'd like to talk about.
Yeah, I bet you would. I got a feeling I'm going to get an ask right now.
Well, I mean, we're here with a lot of business owners, and our goal and objective is always the health and vitality of those businesses. And it's not lost on us that we are one of the few counties in the state that does not have any kind of economic development program that is active and robust. What are your thoughts on that, and could we expect something like that?
I can't speak for other counties. I don't really know how they handle economic development, but one of the things I think if you saw the slide that Mona put up is that, 95% of our county is either national forest or it's in ag preserve. So economic development is different for us because in the unincorporated areas, we don't really have that many opportunities. And the area that we do have as economic opportunity would be the Gaviota Coast, and nobody wants to develop that, right? It's the jewel of the Central Coast. So nobody's going to go be putting a Rosewood Miramar or a Bacara on Gaviota, no matter how much I would love for that to happen. But I always say that I feel like this facility, I call this facility and the Rosewood Miramar, those are the Ryan Reynolds and the Ryan Gosling of the Central Coast. They both look great. They both generate a ton of revenue, and who wouldn't want to spend a weekend with them, So if for us, economic development to me is building more of these. But when you think about economic development for cities, generally they're talking about car dealerships, more restaurants, more business. That's something the county doesn't really get involved in. That's more of a city issue. But I think I feel that we can be of more assistance. First off, we're also collaborating with REACH and our Workforce Development Board. more of a regional approach, where it's San Luis Obispo County, it's Santa Barbara County, and it's Ventura County coming together to really use Vandenberg Space Force Base as our launching point, pun intended, to create high-tech, high-level engineering jobs, high-tech jobs, bring those to the Central Coast, put housing near the jobs so that we don't end up with the sustainability issues that DOS always highlights. And so that's how, and the other thing I see us being able to help on the economic development side is getting us out of the way of businesses that are trying to come here and succeed. And that's by streamlining regulation, and that's by, having people like Roy that are coming in that are actual business owners that can tell us, hey, that's actually a really good idea, but let me tell you how that's going to happen in the real world. And we need more of that.
I love that. I feel like you listened to what I said earlier. That's great. We do have an awful lot of
I did go to Catholic school, so.
We do have an awful lot of high-tech companies right here in Goleta.
Yes.
And
Yes, we do.
in case you're available, we do have our Techtopia event next week, which you're welcome to come and
I would love to
learn
be
more
there.
about.
Yeah.
That's all the questions that I have on my list, but is there anything I haven't covered that you would like me to?
I think that's it. I think this is the first thing I've been to where I haven't been asked about cannabis. So I so much appreciate that. I did notice that my speaking time was at 4:20, so I was a little worried that you were going to go.
Well, it's wine time now, so I didn't bring my script up here, but Kristen, is there anything else I'm supposed to cover? Just thank everybody for coming so much, and please continue to network. Thank you. Oh my gosh, that's right. I don't have my script because I'm about to introduce the wonderful Dr. Peter Rupert, who's wearing his very fancy upscale hokas today, so you know it's going to be a good one. Thank you. Oh, thank you. See? Yep, this is where Pazier says, thank you.
So, people talk about getting dressed up. I'm more dressed up than anybody here, in my view. My normal clothes are shorts and a t-shirt. So I put on a lot more stuff than you guys did today. So, I'm going to grab my notes. Wait a minute, it's a napkin. Okay, so one quick story about Santa Barbara, how amazing it is. So I got a new iPhone last year, and I was looking to get a new case, and I'm sick of the Apple cases. I just don't like the Apple case. So I Google, what's the best case for the Apple phone? And up comes this company called Nomad. So I'm looking, I go to Amazon, it's not there. I'm leaving for Europe in just a couple days. I go to their website. This is my case, and a matching watch. And I'm like, it comes in 3 days, I'm leaving in 2 days. So I'm like, who is this company? So I found out where they are. They're in Santa Barbara. It's a local little company. I go there, downtown. It's like in a parking lot, these guys. They're wearing shorts, picnic table, they're on their computers. I said, hey, I'd like to buy a phone. He goes, no, we're the company. We don't have phone cases, but maybe we have an extra one. Come on in. So I go in. There's like 10 people in there on their computers. I said, yeah, we got one, and we got the watch band too. I said, okay, let me have it. Here's my credit card. I go, we don't have a credit card thing. So I said, I had some cash. I gave him cash, and he's like, we don't have change. It's like, Mary, do you have a 10 to give him? So incredible company. It's right here in Santa Barbara. You can explore these things all the time. It's everywhere in Santa Barbara. So anyway, that's my little spiel. There we go. So I'm going to talk about a few things today. I only have an hour and 15 minutes. It's like my favorite joke, because it scares the hell out of the people who run these things. Because I could do it. So anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about the labor market. I'm going to talk about the U.S. A little bit in general, and then I'm going to talk about Santa Barbara, some specific things I think that are important. So as I say here, U.S., still very strong growth. It's kind of incredible. California is incredibly strong growth. And Santa Barbara, not so good, unfortunately. So I guess I'm a bearer of bad news. Everybody else has been like, we're doing all this shit, and I'm like, we're kind of lagging behind. But unemployment, look, the lowest it's pretty much ever been ever, right? It's gone up a little bit, but still super low. U.S. has seen the lowest rise since the bottom. California has seen the highest increase in unemployment since the bottom, and Santa Barbara somewhere in between. So here's a picture. So the blue line is the U.S. This is employment, all industries. U.S. is blue. California is red. And what you should notice is, how these places came back after the pandemic. So you can see that California is pretty much was growing like crazy in 2012, 2013. The pandemic, everybody lost a lot. But then they kind of came back very fast. The U.S. is back kind of to where it was, kind of on its growth trend. Santa Barbara, on the other hand, is just barely back to where we were pre-pandemic. So the growth in employment has been just incredibly slow. This is the unemployment rates. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. As you can see, going back to the 90s, unemployment was pretty much as low as it's ever been. A super strong labor market, there's no doubt about it. And it was before the pandemic too, so it's not pandemic related. And again, what you can see is California's has risen the most, Santa Barbara in between, and the US the least. Okay, so again, the labor market's really strong. And what I liked what Steve said, stop watching the evening news. Every economist, I'll talk more about this, or business person, journalist, they got to say something. And they just keep saying, hey, it looks good, it looks good. And finally, some people say, no, things are really bad. And I'll explain more about that in a second. So a little bit about inflation, recession, and the Federal Reserve. I will tell you the number one question I get. I used to work at the Fed for 12 years. The number one question I get is, what's the Fed going to do? When are interest rates going to start coming down? Hell, they don't even know. I mean, how am I going to know? But inflation is pretty much under control. There's different ways to measure inflation. I will show you what the Fed uses mostly. Lower rates, I put around the bend. Maybe 25 basis points next time. Many people are saying we're going to see 200 basis point decline over the next 12 months. That seems optimistic to me. But we're certainly going to see, one or two cuts this year, maybe a 50, but it depends on the data, as always. Okay, so what do I mean by inflation's under control? This is core PCE inflation. Most of you know the CPI. That's not what the Fed really looks at. They do look at it, but this is their measure that they use. What does core mean? Getting rid of food and energy. So they look at the personal consumption expenditures. It's a broader measure than the CPI. It gives them more information about what's happening with inflation. And you can see in 2022, when it peaked in 2021, it's been coming down pretty steadily. And if you look at everything that Jerome Powell says, he says that before we start to lower rates, we want to make sure we're seeing a sustained decline in inflation, which we have. The blue line is monthly inflation. That's the thing that gets reported. Don't ever look at that. Don't listen to them. It's meaningless. Look at it. Why would anybody react to that thing? Month by month, it changes like crazy. It's not what the Fed reacts to. Yet, the news press, always says, the monthly inflation rate did whatever. It's useless. The green line is year-over-year inflation. It's not quite as useless, but it's a bit useless. Why is that? It's measuring stuff a year ago, and if inflation rates are really changing compared to a year ago, then that number is going to be too smooth. Okay? So if you go to a thing called Econ Snapshot, you can Google it. It's called Econ Snapshot. The best economics blog out there, it's mine. We created this red line. This red line is a measure of sort of average inflation over several months. And the Fed has started using stuff like this because it's a much cleaner measure. It's not as wiggly as the blue line. It's not as smooth as the green line. So we like this measure, and you can see that it did pop up a little bit. And if you looked now, it's fallen again. But I'll tell you, if it pops up again before the next couple of meetings, the Fed's going to have a hard time lowering rates, right? They don't want to get back into a situation of 6, 7, 8% inflation. They never want to be there again. They probably will, but, you know. The line at 2, I know it's hard to see. The line at 2 is the Fed's target. You know, so why is it 2? I don't think anybody knows, actually, but they have a 2% target. And I know lots of people at the Fed still, and what I tell them is, how's it going with the target? Look at the blue line. I said, yeah, you hit the target every time it goes way above it and every time it goes way below it. You hit the target. Nice job. They're getting there. They're getting there. And that's what the market is predicting. Okay? So that's inflation. So the question is, are we in a recession? This came out, The Economist, I think it was today or yesterday. It says, is America already in a recession? You can't read it. Some rules of thumb suggest so. I mean, okay, there's a rule of thumb. And what they quote in this thing is something called the SAHM rule, S-A-H-M rule, which is if unemployment goes up by more than 0.5 percentage points from its base, then we're in a recession. I just showed you what's going on with the labor market. It's incredibly strong. The fact that unemployment rate goes up from the lowest it's ever been, it's just not a big deal. It's going to get back to sort of its normal rate, around 4%, something like that. Any economist, anybody in this room can find some weakness in the data. Easy to do. And so what people do, many economists, business economists, they write something that says, yeah, we're in a recession. And if they're right, they're going to make $1 million. They're going to be called by Citibank to be their economist. They're going to write books. They're famous economists. They forecast the recession. No one can forecast turning points in recessions. No one. By the way, today, there's going to be 1,000 economists saying we're going to be in a recession next month. And one of them might be right if it happens, right? They're going to be right. Next month, if it didn't happen, they're wrong. But no one remembers. So don't listen to them. As of July 26th, this is where the data comes from. Are we in a recession? So this comes from some economists who all they look at is data. And they have a bunch of data that they put together. And it's things like productivity, employment growth, unemployment, you name it. And they put it in this little model, and they run their statistical model, and out pops a probability of being in a recession. So I like this model for one reason, well, many reasons, but one reason is their model predicts when we're in a recession 100% of the time. So that's pretty good. Can you see where we are today? The data say that the probability we're in a recession is like 1%. Okay? So the data is not telling us we're in a recession. People tell us we're in a recession. And by the way, what's the National Bureau of Economic Research, which tells us, those are the gray bars, the National Bureau of Economic Research. They wait for 6 months to tell us whether we're in a recession or not. We don't need that. I think every business owner, every real estate person, every bank knows when things are bad. We don't have to be told 6 months later, right? So the data's not saying we're close to a recession. So now I want to talk a little bit more about Santa Barbara County and what I think are some notable things. You may not think they're notable, but it's my talk. I'm going to talk a little bit about the age distribution, what we've seen over the past 20-some years, and what we're going to see in the next 10 years. This comes from the U.S. Census projections. I'm going to talk about the distribution by race and ethnicity in Santa Barbara County. And then I'm going to talk about jobs, where the jobs are, where the growing jobs are, et cetera. We're all good? All right. So this next graph, I hate it, by the way, and I hate when people put graphs like this up. I hate it. Because you can't see anything. But I have a friend back here, Alfonso, who's going to blow it up. So what is this? This is the change in the age distribution starting in 2021 going to 2024. And if you look, you'll see, it's hard to see the colors, but the red basically shows you, look at 35 to 39 years old, 40 to 44, 50 to 54. All huge declines in the age distribution in that area. Those are prime age workers. We have many, many fewer of them today in 2024 than we did in 2021. Okay? And by the way, this matters for lots of things. For example, those are the ones with kids. Do you see the top part? 5 to 9 years old, 10 to 14. Well, guess what? Those middle-aged people, they take their kids with them when they leave. Right? So what's happening here is we're seeing a much, much different distribution in 2024 than we saw in 2021. And now if you look toward the bottom, 60 to 64, 65% increase in old people. And most of you are here. I can tell. Let's go to the next one. Let's look at a forecast. Okay, yeah, blow this one up. So this is going out in time. This is going over the next 10 years. And again, what you're going to see is the same red areas. So over the next 10 years, we're not going to be seeing that distribution change much compared to today. Now, what that's going to matter a lot for people's decisions about schooling, for example. How do we think about schools? How do different businesses think about the changing age distribution? Okay, healthcare. And I'll talk more about healthcare in a second. Okay, let's go to the next one. He's got to shrink it down. And it should switch over. There we go. Okay, this is by race and ethnicity. And what you're going to see here is, if you look at the top, white non-Hispanic, we're seeing a big decline in white non-Hispanic. And you can see the distribution, it's close in terms of white Hispanic and white non-Hispanic in terms of the fraction of the population. Okay, we'll go to the next one. What we're going to see going forward at 2034. Oh, back. Oop, there we go. Okay, blow that one up. And what you're going to see is a much, much different distribution. Only 35% of the population is going to be white non-Hispanic, and 47% is going to be white Hispanic. So we're going to have a much, much larger change going to 2034. Again, it matters for what we think about schooling, what we think about businesses, et cetera, how to housing, you name it. Right? So these changes are big. And it's something everyone should kind of realize, and many of you do already, but here are the numbers. Again, they come from the census. Okay, next one. Oh, there we go. Whoops. Back one. So, oops. Nope. Back. There. Okay, so this is migration patterns, 2011 to 2021. On the left side is where people lived previously. The blue bar in the center is Santa Barbara. So what you're seeing is, from the left, who's coming into Santa Barbara? They were mostly from Los Angeles over that time period. San Luis Obispo next. Ventura next. Okay, and the other ones are much, much smaller. If you look at the pinkish color going to the right, you can see where people who are in Santa Barbara are moving to. Where are they going? The number one is San Luis Obispo. No one wants to go to LA. Next, You can see Ventura County, then LA, and look toward the bottom, you're going to see Colorado, Arizona, etc. Okay, so that's where people are going. Many people think that a lot of people left, these places because they were too expensive. Well, some did, but most of them are just switching between LA, Ventura, San Luis Obispo. That's where they're going. So let's look at the fastest growing occupations. The fastest, you can't see the numbers, that's fine. You can look at the bars. So what you can see is the largest growing are farming and fishing, and the next biggest is food prep. Those are the lowest earners out here. These are $15 to $17, $18 an hour. These are going to be the fastest growing, these are the fastest growing occupations between 2001 and 2024. Okay? What people don't realize, and Steve mentioned it, other people mention it all the time, we want to create high-paying jobs. Well, you have to remember something. Most jobs are not high-paying. There's one CEO, and then they have 100 people working for them. Right? So most job growth is in low-paying jobs. That's where most, but we can change that. We can alter that by the types of technologies we have, and et cetera. So go to the next one, which is job growth projections. Agriculture, forestry, and fishing over the next 10 years. Healthcare, and government. They're going to be hiring more people. You're going to see healthcare again in a second. These are job postings. So these are scraped from hundreds and hundreds of job posting sites. You can see the number one posting is in healthcare. There are more healthcare jobs postings out there than any other occupation. And you're going to hear this over and over again over the next few years. This is where a lot of the jobs are going to be in healthcare, and they're higher paying. Office and administration support, sales and related occupations, management, computer, food prep, etc. Architecture and engineering, Mike, it's down here. Right, those are the projections. Here are the companies that are posting the most in Santa Barbara County. Robert Half, employment firm. Health, University of California. Raytheon, Marriott, Health, Cottage Health, Elevance Health. A lot of health, right? So that's one of the big occupations that are going to be growing, and we need. There's no doubt about that. Because remember, you people are old. I already told you that. Don't forget it. I have to talk about housing. I'm sorry. And rent control. Yeah. So last May, at the Forecast Project we did at the Granada Theater, over the next couple days, there were some pretty, I don't know if they were nasty, but they weren't very nice articles about me, written by a journalist. I won't name names, Nick. He basically called me all kinds of things. He said economists are basically charlatans. They show us a bunch of graphs. They play three-card Monty with us. You know, they make all these comments. Does it really happen in the real world? I'm like, Nick, get out of your thing, you know. And by the way, I like Nick. We can have beer, you know, it's all good. He said, all I do is talk about rent control. And you know why? I'll tell you the reason why. Imagine your kid comes home and you're trying to teach them some arithmetic. And the kid says, you say to the kid, what's 2 plus 2? They say 5. You don't leave it at that. You say, no, 2 plus 2 is 4. And you drill it into their head that the right answer is 2 plus 2 equals 4. You don't let it be 5. That would be not good. That's why I tell people rent control is terrible. And I'm going to keep saying it until people understand why. Okay? Now, first of all, we're all on the same team. We're all on the same side. I want affordable housing. I want, you know, all that stuff. It just matters how we get there. And I can tell you now, rent control is not the way to get there. This is August 19th, last week, article. Google it, rent control in Argentina. They had rent control in Argentina, they put it in 2020. What happened? Well, it turns out that 45% of apartment owners stopped renting their place. 1 out of 7 homes became vacant, apartments that used to be full. Rents were going up like crazy, etc. The new president comes in, he gets rid of all rent control. In 9 months, housing supply increased by 200%, and rents fell. And if you Google it, you can hear people talking about it. Okay, so this is important to understand. If we want to have more housing, which we need, the state tells us we need it, we need to have more housing, we have to build more housing. And the way to build more housing is to get out of the way and let people build homes. It's as simple as that. Anytime you put barriers to building homes, like rent control, like some fraction affordable, whatever, I think builders will learn they can make money by building more affordable homes, lower price homes. They can do that, okay? But if you don't let them get their return on their capital investment, they ain't building, okay? And doesn't take much, Nick. Let's go drink. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Always entertaining and inspiring. That concludes our program for today, and I'd like to thank all of our speakers and all of you for joining us for the 3rd annual State of the County. I thought it was 4th. Please enjoy a glass of wine and some bites as we transition to a networking reception, and don't forget to take home a centerpiece from Pour Lamar. Thank you, everyone.